Ah, I can be heard. I hope everyone can hear me. If you're coming in to our live, so I am just jumping back onto our original topic from Tuesday, right? So as we wind down mental health month, I really wanted to just talk a little bit about the gut and brain connection. I have spoken about the gut and brain connection before, and in the past we have, focused on the gut more. But today we'll talk a little bit more about some of the chemicals that help to control what's going on with us. But even before I start, I wanted to ask if anyone has ever looked at white underbelly. Um, white, white underbelly. It's really interesting. Takes a look at exactly what it says: the white underbelly of the United States of America. And there are many interesting and intriguing characters that I come across, and people's stories are very, you know, you could tell a lot about um, a person, and even some of their struggles based on their stories, and their journey. But it's interesting. White Underbelly really explores. Greetings, a hot Makira. Peace. Welcome. So we're gonna try this again. I'm sure I'm clear, and I'm sure I can be heard. Just let me know. It'd be good to know if you can hear me. I'm in the middle of fixing my screen, but I was talking a little bit about White Underbelly. If you have never seen the show, it's something that when I do have a moment to look at it, I do. And I've been following this young lady, Amanda, right? What I was saying before, though, was just that there's such a wide variety of stories and people and characters that you come across um, when looking at White Underbelly. And, I think it's ingenious. Um, just interviewing people consistently and continuously, and just giving them a space to actually share their stories and unleash or offload, so to speak, some of their own personal baggage um, to strangers, right? But it's a release nonetheless. So I just found it interesting. I wanted to share a little bit about Amanda, who has passed away, and I actually made a quick post about it because it's almost like she's the stranger little sister in a sense. I never knew her, but knew her from White Underbelly, and her struggle was real. Her struggle was real. You see her shift and move through her story of being a college student and becoming a college dropout, and then living on the street. But she was afflicted, right, with you know I think she was schizophrenic, but she was afflicted with drug use, and those were her choices as well. But there was um, some issues with her mental stability, and you could tell whenever she speaks, there was always a fight. There was some sort of fight with her happening mentally, internally, but also, she had living on the street. She had some really serious encounters. Right, she was raped several times, and again, these are stories that she has shared. So sometimes it's always, it's really important to just think about, how much a person shares, but how much it is that you know they don't share. And I think about her and most of the others from White Underbelly because I say to myself, they give so much of their stories, but there may be other parts to them that we don't know about. All we see is that the ruddy faces or those who are prostitutes, and we see that life, but we don't see the larger aspect of who they are. Just something to think think about, something that I thought I would share. But if you're coming in and you've seen White Underbelly and you've heard of Amanda, just drop her name in the comments, hashtag Amanda, just because, just because. So today I wanted to continue our dialogue and conversation around gut health. I definitely think that there are many other afflictions, like mental afflictions and so on, that kind of affect people, many of us. And sometimes it's a direct reflection of what's happening in the guts. And one very famous boxer we know of actually had Parkinson's, and Parkinson's is directly connected to things like dopamine and tyrosine in you know that's produced in the body. So I think that there's this never-ending thread of connectivity between what's going on in our digestive tract, our gut, and what's happening with our brain. Not that and the picture that I have up there actually identifies this physical brain as the first and the gut as the second brain, and there being a cycle, right, of communication that constantly happens in between the two. Actually called the gut brain axon, and so there's a direct reciprocating of communication or constant back and forth or exchange that happens between them chemically, right? So one of the things I kind of identified um, from Tuesday was that the quality of our foods actually directly connects to the quality of our microbiomes, right? Microbiome and the microbiota. And I think I saw a question in the chat and I remembered from Tuesday, microbiome, and I guess it was a question. What is the microbiome? So the microbiome is that community of bacteria um, that's responsible for breaking down. It includes enzymes and others that are responsible for breaking down and aiding in this assimilation of many of the amino acids and nutrients and enzymes that um, we consume when we consume foods. But they also produce other chemicals as well too, and those chemicals actually connect to the brain, and they help to influence certain firing of particular neurons. We even consume foods that actually produce or help to produce levels of dopamine. Interesting enough, though, there's that direct, and dopamine is interesting because dopamine is responsible for craving and wanting, right? I actually There's this text called The Molecule of More, right? So it's really all about the idea of dopamine being that driving force to want more, to want more, to want more. And I just found that dopamine was very interesting because there's this direct correlation, and I'll talk about it a little later. But I wanted to recite some of the information shared on Tuesday. One other piece that's interesting to know is that when we think about the gut, many times we probably think, okay, we're all human, we're all similar, and because we're similar, our gut probably is the same. There's no big difference, but there is, right? Our gut flora or gut microbiome varies. They vary very similarly to the way of our fingerprints are variated, right? Or that there are differences in fingerprints for everyone. And so the same is true, right? Our microbiome is very similar to a fingerprint. It is personal to you. There may be even twins or people who are related based on blood or biology, and even then there is a difference in the microbiome or the gut microbiota. So that's something to consider and to think about again the quality of food that we consume and how that influences what the microbiome looks like. um, I talked about genetics a little bit too, but I wanted to share that, oh, someone asked me too, like when you talk about um, the gut, I'm talking about the intestines, and I'm talking about the stomach. So not when I say gut, I'm not just speaking about the stomach, because we need the large and small intestine to help with the assimilation of that food. Very important. So the gut is inclusive of that whole system. All right. So, and a matter of fact, the stomach is, as I said before, like that second brain. All right. And it is considered a second brain because of the way certain neurons process information from the stomach, and the way the stomach reacts to some of the chemicals that are also produced in the brain. Very important to think about. A great example of the way we behave when we are driven by hunger, right? So this is like back to the continuous dialogue or communication that actually occurs between the brain and the gut. The brain and the gut is um, an example of that type of behavior is when we are driven by hunger, especially hunger for a particular food, right? And I laugh because it goes back to the idea of dopamine, right? Dopamine is that chemical that makes you want more. It makes you crave things. And so I discovered that, for example, if someone shares, right, a particular, let's say they gave you, they share, oh my goodness, can you all see me? Can you see me? I think I touched the wrong thing on my screen. I tried to clear my screen. So just let me know if you can see me. Greetings, Sister Kashia. If you can see me, let me know. And if you can hear me, please let me know. I'll wait just a little because I think I touched the screen and it shifted. Greetings, greetings. We can see you. All right, loud and clear. Greetings, Ema. Greetings, Ema Kuya. All right, good. All right, that took a little while. It just okay. I have to remember that there's this delay. Right. So back to the food suggestion. Like if someone suggests this really awesome place that you should go grab something to eat, um, and they built up your expectation of this particular item, food, whatever it is, and you go to that place and you purchase exactly what it is that they told you was so good. There are dopamine levels that are actually secreted and released in the body just from hearing about this particular thing, right? So, again, the dopamine is directly connected to desire and craving. And you probably say, well, what that have to do with the gut? Well, it stimulates the gut as well too. So that's what's interesting. You're craving it, you're desiring it. It's that dopamine. It's that good, it's that feeling, that rush that you get from that expectation. The interesting thing is when you actually go to consume the food, or you go to have whatever that experience is that the person has built you up to for, based on their suggestion, they hyped it up, right? So because they've hyped it up, um, the dopamine levels kind of give you that desire to want to experience it, right? So it lifts you up, it increases you, you get hyped up. When you get to the experience and you have it, and the there are dopamine levels that are actually produced as well when you consume that food. And I'm saying consume the food because that's the example I gave. But it could be anything. It could be an experience. It could be listening to a piece of music. It could be anything. But we all know that there's a direct connection between addictions and emotions and food specifically. And that's again because of the chemical interaction that's happening between the brain and the gut. So if your dopamine levels are higher during that experience, when they explain and give you all these suggestions, if it is higher than the actual experience, what you literally do is you create a pattern in the body, or in your system that kind of says, you know what, this was a disappointment. This was no good. This is not what I wanted. This is not what I expected. And you will literally find your body uh, pulling away from that food. All right. And it may be something that you like and enjoy, but because of the difference between the dopamine level during expectation and the actual experience of consuming the food, because is the expectation, the dopa expectation is higher versus the dopa when you actually consume it, you no longer crave that food anymore. You actually lose interest completely. All right. So the I think the text was called the molecule of more. That's something that you can check out. I see a lot of people saying grease, grease, peace, peace to Chief. Greetings, peace, Chief. You are. Thank you for being in the space. Yes, yes, Ima Queer. It is euphoric. It is euphoric. It's all of that excitement. It's dopamine. It's dopamine. Um, and people actually take L-tyrosine and some other forms of it because L-tyrosine actually will help to eventually produce dopamine. So what would happen is, and I'm sharing it because I want to share directly when it directly something that's directly connected to mental health, right? And that was part of what I did not get to on Tuesday. But people take L-tyrosine because it has a very similar effect. Um, the problem is you can consume it through food, and I'll share just a few foods that you can actually get natural levels of L-tyrosine from. But there are other substances that we consume. I'm trying to move into the sunlight so I'm not in the dark. But there are other substances, sorry, that we can get addicted to and utilize because it gives the similar dopa. I call it dopa. As I was doing this, it's like, oh, this is dope. This is dopa. It gives the similar dopa high, right? The problem is it is so extreme that your body never recovers from experiencing those levels of chemical reactions that's similar to dopamine. So it will never be able to release the same levels of dopamine afterward. And so what happens is people constantly go back to those things. Those two things are cocaine and meth. Cocaine and meth. So I was thinking about it, and I said to myself, wow, so you have these substances that mimic dopamine so well that it actually pulls us, right? And I'm saying us, but I don't use it, but pulls people into being addicted because it's that euphoria that you mentioned, Ima Kuya. It's that high that you feel. It's that craving and you want more. So it's really difficult for people to break that cycle because once they get hooked on the coke and the meth, it that's it. There is nothing more extreme, or there's nothing that they could take. No L-tyrosine, no food they could eat that's going to be equivalent to that level of dopamine high, so to speak. That they get. Um, so the way to work with that, and I'm sharing because sometimes we have low levels of dopamine. Sometimes we have low levels of dopamine because there are certain foods or certain inconsistencies in our diet that leads to low production of dopamine, and low production of dopamine directly connects to Parkinson's. And I'm going to tell you how. um, I'm going to tell you how. So, Parkinson's is actually, and there are two people who I was thinking about when this came to mind. Oh my gosh, famous actor Fox, Fox. Um, what's his first name? Somebody help me. What's his first name? Fox, and of course Muhammad Ali, right? So one of the things you notice is that with Parkinson's, there are tremors very much present. Jamie Foxx? Not Jamie Foxx. Michael J. Fox. Thank you. Jamie Foxx. No. Thank you, Queer. Fine. Um, someone else said it. Someone else said it. Greetings. Let me greet everyone. Pardon. Greetings, Maxine. All right. Greetings, Ema Sequoia. That's funny. Yes, you're welcome. So yes, it is the actor Michael J. Fox. So Parkinson's, and these are two people. These are two people who I know of that are famous. We all know them. They're very popular, or they used to be popular. Um, Muhammad Ali will always be popular. Sorry, but yeah, they have had very low to extreme, you know, effects of Parkinson's, and so it begins with shakes and tremors and restriction in terms of movement, and then it can get so severe that it restricts speech, right, and the ability to communicate. And so what happens in those instances is that it's the lack of dopamine. So if you have low levels of dopamine, again, that chemical really helps with motivation. It actually low levels can actually lead to depression as well. And with people who have Parkinson's, there's some aspects of depression there too. So I'm saying all of this to say it all ties in to the identifying of mental health, um, and looking at the month of May as mental health, and like just thinking about how again the foods we consume and the chemical reactions that happen in our bodies can actually affect the presence of certain diseases or the development of certain diseases in our bodies. And again, something as simple as depression. People with Parkinson's aren't the only ones who experience that, others do too. And so the question now becomes, well, how can we adjust some levels of like L-tyrosine and dopamine and even serotonin to support our systems so that we have a more balanced well-being, a more balanced outlook on life, and things like that. um, I don't know if you have any questions, but I wanted to share a few foods that we can consume, and I'm going to have to I kind of have to, because I want to make sure I have hit all my points. Today was just studying this very timely. Well, you were share if you discovered anything new. Share, add to the discussion, please. That would be wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Um, so the so I shared that. Yeah, I think I touched on the fact that there's shaking that happens. There's a lot of inconsistencies and tremors are also a huge part of what happens when you have low or deficits of dopamine in the body. So those are things to think of, and even motivation to do things and movement. Those things become really restricted. All right, really restricted. So I I think it's really important to again to think about just how intricate are the human body is, and how the lack of or the deficit or the reducing of certain chemicals that are supposed to help with the balancing of our bodies, when we're in lack, it actually affects us or it manifests in different ways. Ima Sequoia says, yay for mental health. We sisters been on the same wave with the theme. I didn't even realize it was mental health month. Yes, 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 yes. And it's winding down. But it should be something that is, like always addressed. I know we get into the whole, this is the month we're celebrating this thing or that thing, but it's something to constantly keep at the forefront of our conversations. Maxine says, yes, a natural way to maintain healthy levels of our neurotransmitters is physical exercise. This is true. This is true. This is true. It is actually more euphoric, um, than many experiences. There is a high that you get from physical exercise. This is true. It keeps you limber. It keeps, if you have restriction in movement, it may become difficult to do certain exercises, but movement is necessary. And Anwe talks about movement, moving every day, so very important. Um, I wanted to share, there are a couple foods that we can indulge in that will support our levels of L-tyrosine. And L-tyrosine, again, helps to eventually produce dopamine. So, um, if you take L-tyrosine, it's not because I'm saying, okay, take it instead of dopamine. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying is L-tyrosine is necessary in order for the production of dopamine. So, and there are other foods, but because I only consume plant based, my share here will be predominantly plant based. You want to get into your nuts and seeds, and some of those seeds that I'm going to identify are hemp seed, sesame, sunflower seeds, and of course, I really condone sprouting. So make sure that you're sprouting your sunflower seeds and you're changing the water periodically. And some of the grain that you can use if you are someone who can consume grain, because some grain can be very hard for some of us to digest. So make sure you're soaking, make sure you're changing the water, and make sure you're cooking them properly. Wild rice, which is not really a rice, it's a grain, a nut rather. Um, what was the other one? Kamut. I could never remember kamut. Kamut. They look very similar to barley. Millet is another one. So those are a few of the grains that you can consume to support you. All right. Okay, there's more chat in the chat. Sister Kashia says yes. I am learning the same in developmental psychology class. Sometimes we think we are vitamin deficient or depressed, but usually it's because movement and lack of sunlight is needed. Also, foods which you're covering. Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. Sunlight. Vitamin D necessary. Necessary for keeping us balanced. Listen, you could tell the difference. We were covering something on Shima a couple songs ago, and I think it had to do with how we function during like our cycles, right? And I couldn't help but thinking how um, the seasons where there's so much sunlight actually make I feel like a battery, like I feel full, I feel constant, like I want to constantly be in motion. There's a huge difference, huge difference. So in other words, don't live where there's no sunlight. That's it. That's all I have to say. Don't live in places where there is no sunlight or large periods of time without sunlight. Sakuya says, I was just about to ask about millet. I have to so much of it, but haven't consumed it yet. I don't consume too much of it. Consume a very little. Millet can be very starchy. Millet can be very, very starchy. So yeah, it's not something I would um, consume if I'm trying to stay away from carb heavy, grains and so. Yeah. Give thanks. Thank you very much, Maxine. Thank you, Quia. Thank you all, everybody in here, chatting up a storm. I think I missed something above. I'm scrolling back because I think I missed something. Okay. So yes, that's all I wanted to share today. The other thing that I wanted to quickly touch on were two herbs that we could use to support our gut and our digestive system. There's, there's some more dialogue that I'm going to have along with a guest on for a podcast that will be released next Wednesday. We'll be talking a lot more about gut and gut health and brain health and mental health with LaJune Singleton on her podcast. And once I share that, I'll be able to also share the video so you can kind of dive into the dialogue, not just from my perspective, but from um, another perspective, from a sister who's a nutritionist. So she'll bring some of that with her into the discussion. Maxine says, told us Sister share the chemistry edition with you. The psyche class will be interesting. Yes, yes, yes. So, yeah, look forward to some more dialogue around gut and brain health. Two herbs that I wanted to share before I leave to help to support gut function is licorice and gentian root. Um, Go do your research, read up about it, see if it will assimilate into your body very well. But those are two that I can say off the top of my head. Um, I also think pineapples and even green papayas can be helpful. I know we don't tend to consider um, not papayas outside of their ripened state. We always consider um, just having ripe papayas. But green papaya is good. You can cook it down, and it actually releases a particular enzyme that's helpful with digestion. So if you're low on digestive enzymes and you want to build up your good gut bacteria, which leads to good brain function, green papaya can be helpful to you. Um, Fried papaya is helpful too. Um, Pineapples as well. I think I mentioned pineapples. Very good to help. They help to produce what's called proteolytic enzymes, and those help to break down foods. If you're having issues with digestion, bloating, and so on, it's probably because you don't have sufficient enzymes to break down that particular fiber. So, including or introducing pineapple juice or just eating pineapples will help to increase that. Gentian, yes, I didn't say ginseng. Maxine has the correct spelling. Gentian. Root. Gentian. Root. All right. Okay. So it is 107. Peace and power. Thank you all for sharing in this space. There's so much more that I do want to share. I wanted to talk a little bit more about, some more about digestive enzymes and so, but there's so much more conversation. I'll leave some of it for tomorrow and it will continue into our next podcast. So please like, share, subscribe. Thank you all. I really appreciate you being in the space. Give thanks, Sister Manira. I will. It was helpful. Um, yes, yes. You're welcome. Peace, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Be productive. All right. Be productive.